Good morning, Vandal fans, and welcome to another edition of Fourth and Downtown. I'm your host, Josh Grissom. I'm joined with Luis the Godfather Torres. Here we're going to talk some men's and women's tennis results. We're also going to talk about the latest cross-country recruit that is verbally committed to the University of Idaho. And then we'll wrap up talking a little bit about golf and track and field at the university. So, Luis, let's jump into some of the stuff that you've been covering this weekend. Obviously, the Hawkeye Invitational is what the men's golf team is competing in at this moment. And how is the team doing right now? How are the results going for the Vandals?
There's very little information that I've received, but right now 3 Idaho players are in the top 25 after the first 2 rounds. They're going to still continue until today, so it will basically the Hawkeye Invitational will be wrapped up. But currently, as a team, they are tied for 6th with 588 points at 18 holes to play. So right now they're kind of hanging in there. They're really into the top 10 and competing with these schools like Iowa right now. So I would expect for them to continue to do better. But as soon as there hasn't been really much information either from what I received earlier this morning as far as where they at and where how many players are doing well right now. So as soon as I get any more information, they'll probably be mentioned on Twitter, depending how active their Twitter handler is on golf. If they're not really as active, then as soon as I get information, make sure to tune in on at Vandal Nation on Twitter to get the latest updates and results for men's golf as soon as possible.
Yep, it seems right now Ian Kim and Daniel Sutton are tied for 12th with a score of 145. Ryan Porch is tied for 18th at 146. And Enrique Marin and Jake Scaro are tied for 54th at 152. Currently, Kansas is the first day leader with a 573, and Iowa State and Kansas State are close behind and are tied for second at 577. So, 3 Vandals in the top 25 after the first 2 rounds. We'll definitely see what happens today, but that's a pretty good start. I've been impressed with Sutton's performance in recent weeks. It seems like he's been doing an excellent job in kind of leading this Vandals men's golf team.
No, he's been doing a pretty good job. We normally don't hear much about the men's golf team in the last couple of weeks when considering the insurmountable success the women's has had right now with them winning the Cowgirl Classic and also having a couple of players that's been shining through. So it's nice to hear from a couple of the guys really stepping it up right now in a major tournament like the Hawkeye Invitational.
So let's shift our attention real quick to the Idaho track and field team. They were competing in Southern California. I believe it was 4 different events they had athletes attend. Am I correct?
There were multiple events, several of them in the Southern California area, including the one in Southern California that had wrapped up yesterday. So we do have information about it, including with Kelsey Bates throwing a season best of discus at 44.27 meters. Arfred Carroll pretty much almost continues to stride at this point of the season with 7.44 meters in the long jump and finishing 6th. And he already has the top jump of the year that was set on Thursday, which is also the 8th best in Idaho history. So it's been going on for multiple days. And also, it kind of like as a whole, Drew Thompson had the personal best of 6,296 points in the decathlon, taking 7th overall, and now he punched his ticket to the Big Sky Championship. Nathan Stark also made history, running the 9th fastest 3,000-meter steeplechase in program history, along with Kinsey Gomez with a personal best at the Brian Clay Invitational with 4 minutes 22 seconds at 4 minutes 22.1 seconds, which is the fastest of the Big Sky season. So they're continuing to hitting their stride right now in multiple events, and that's kind of like just the beginning of what this looked like to be a successful personal best kind of a performance for a lot of the runners and fielders.
How do you feel the team is going to stack up when it comes to the Big Sky Championships outdoor competition?
I think they have a great chance right now. They just gotta have to keep getting their personal best and continue to make history in the program, which they have been and they've been doing all season long. But right now, it's kind of like their focus is kind of like, can they get better? Can they continue to break those records? Can they continue to get personal best as the season progresses right now? But I think they have a promising chance for the Big Sky Championships now that we have multiple athletes and we're still getting more invites to the championship tournament. So right now, can't really say how they're going to do, but I think if they continue to get better and really showcase what they got down the stretch and prove themselves, they improve by the minute or by the event, then there's no stopping it. Right now, they've been doing pretty solid right now.
And that was this weekend's events. The Idaho track and field team traveled to multiple locations in California, including the Mount Sac Relays, the Long Beach Invitational, just to name a couple. I believe there was 4 total. So we'll be waiting to see the rest of those results, and be sure to check out Luis's piece in the Argonaut. That'll come out Tuesday, but you can also access it online Monday night. So always be tuned for that. Luis, let's shift our attention to men's and women's golf. It seems that both of these programs are heating up at just the right time. We'll start with women's. They traveled on the road to Grand Forks, North Dakota, to face North Dakota, and they recorded their 4th consecutive win with a 6-1 defeat of the.
Don't you mean tennis? We kind of talked about golf already.
Yes, this is tennis. I did say tennis. So you have this women's program. 4 straight. I believe right now they're the number 2 seed in the standings, and then they just obliterate North Dakota 6-1, 14-8 overall, 8-2 in the Big Sky Conference. We have arguably the best singles player in the conference in Mariana Petri. What do you like about this program at this point in time? Because I believe the Big Sky tournament is 2 weeks away, and seems like they're hitting their stride at precisely the right moment.
I think they're continuation of team building. That's pretty much what I always notice when it comes to the women's tennis team. They continue to get better and better and learn how they work as a team and learn how to work on their individual craft, which has been excellent thus far. I think it's kind of like their team chemistry and how they know one another, how they respect each other in the game of tennis, and when they face those competitive players, they kind of understand what kind of different play style based on the ravishing and different personalities each one of them has had throughout the year. So I think that's what's kind of have motivated them to succeed and excel. And knowing they want to make it further into the tournament, I think really helps.
Now, I'm just going to go over the box score really quickly. In doubles competition, Anna Batiri and Belen Barcinella defeated Lacey Sprinkler and Mimi Junker 6-1. Rita Bermudez and Celine Coates followed that performance by defeating Faith Lee and P3 Casillingham 6-0. And then on the third court of doubles play, Mariana Petri and Lucia Bedios defeated Shelby Zilmer and Mary Westman 6-1. So those are dominating performances across the board in doubles play. 6-1, 6-0, 6-1. I know that's kind of been an aspect they've not necessarily struggled with, but head coach Mariana Cobra said that was a very vital component of the game that the Vandals needed to find success in, and it seems like they're doing that right now.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what Mariana Cobra has been saying throughout the year when it comes to their doubles, that they have to work on it because it's very vital for them. And it goes back from the very beginning of the season when they went down to Las Vegas, and it just continues to be kind of like their main focus, and that's why I said about the personality and the team chemistry has really been solid, and it's kind of helped them on the court, whether they're in doubles or in singles. It's kind of helped them to kind of motivate each other and kind of understand their different style of plays, and they kind of adapt it when they face their opponents.
And North Dakota's only point came from the number 2 singles court. Mimi Junker defeated Anna Batiri 7-6, 7-5. So definitely not it was a competitive matchup for the Vandals to lose. And looking at these other single scores, 6-1, 6-0, 6-2, 6-1, 6-0, 6-1, 6-2, 6-0, dominating across the board. And the one thing that stands out to me is Senior Rita Bermudez kind of rebounded from a little bit of a, I guess you would call it I guess she struggled a little bit in the last couple weeks, especially in singles play. But she responded by putting together a 6-4, 6-1 defeat of Faith Lee on the number 3 court. It's always good to see that from the senior.
No, it's always good to see finding a way to kind of not worry about the quote unquote sometimes we consider a little bit of a minor slump. Sometimes we just consider a little bit of struggle and consistency. But right now, the Bermudez is kind of like the mindset is that she only has this few games left to begin with. Want to end your career on a good note as best as possible when you're healthy and competitive. And I think I would imagine she's aware, she's a parent. It has become apparent that she needs to really step it up, and I think she's doing it at the right time. And want to end her illustrious career on a good note, not on a quote unquote struggle.
Now, the future is very bright for this program, particularly with Mariana Petry. I believe she's 18-2 or 19-2 in singles play this season. Has not yet lost to a conference opponent. It's incredible when your winning percentage is over 90 in any sport, let alone tennis. And for her to be able to almost be reliable in that she will always get a point in singles play has to be a huge relief for Cobra and the women's tennis program.
No, if you've been successful all season long, you only have a few, barely any losses to begin with. I think you can sense why we're bringing up the quote-unquote struggle. Maybe because it's not as dominant as it was at the beginning of the season. But as long as the results are there, she keeps winning and finds a way to kind of further improve her graphic. Because there's always room for improvement. It doesn't matter how well you are, how solid you are, because in the world of sports, nobody can be perfect all the time, and it's just difficult to kind of continue, because sometimes you'll have off days or really on point days, or also you may have a very competitive opponent that may have outsmarted or outsynced you. And the fact that right now the Bermudez is hanging on with this astonishing record right now that she has, there's no shame about it. There's no shame, to be quite honest.
And you have to assume that she's going to get Big Sky Conference Player of the Year, right?
You would think it's kind of, we'll have to see how the team does and how she does the next couple of weeks or even a week or two, because we're now at the point of the tournament.
Now, would you consider the tournament performance with the honor? Because I believe the honors are given right before the postseason tournament.
I think if the honors do come out early before the tournament, I think that could boost the people will be keeping an eye on Bermudez, whether or not she's Player of the Year worthy. She's got to have to perform really well in a tournament, and I don't know if having the team move further will help increase the voting panel a little bit as far as voting for Bermudez. But right now, I think she's got to continue to get stronger and to make a point that she is Player of the Year worthy. Because I think if you hit your stride late in the season, as much as you did in the beginning, I think that will really help. Right now, I think that's what Bermudez needs for that to be officially clinched in favor for Idaho to have a Player of the Year in the Big Sky once again.
Don't you mean Petry? We're talking about Mariana Petry.
I thought we were talking about Bermudez.
No, Mariana Petry,
the
freshman who's 18-2 in singles play.
You brought up Bermudez.
Bermudez. We were talking about Bermudez rebounding well from a particularly slow stretch of play, but then we started talking about Petry and her performance on the number one court, being a reliable individual and getting a singles point for, it almost seems, every single match for the Vandals, and whether or not she should get Player of the Year.
I could have gotten that explanation earlier. If you mentioned Petry, I would have mentioned Petry, but right now I think she's got to continue what she has to do.
Yeah, she's tearing it up in the Big Sky Conference, and to have a record like that is incredible, especially as a freshman. Obviously, Cobra and the Vandal program will be successful for many more years to come. Looking at the Big Sky Conference standings right now, Northern Arizona sits first with a conference record of 9-1. They're 16-7 overall. Sacramento State has a conference record of 7-1. They're 11-8 overall. I don't know how many more games they have left, but they only lead the Vandals by a half game. Idaho by one full game. Idaho sits in third with an 8-2 conference record, 14-8 overall. 4-0 at home, 4-7 away, and 6-1 on neutral courts. Weber State right now is fourth with a 7-2 conference record. They are 8-12 overall. Kind of interesting to see that 7 of their 8 wins have come against Big Sky Conference opponents, and that they are 1-10 outside of their conference. And then we have Montana State right now in fifth with a 6-5 conference record, 8-14 overall, and we have right now Eastern Washington with a 5-5 record, and Portland State with a 5-6 record, battling it out for the postseason berth. But looking at these top 3 teams, Northern Arizona, Sacramento State, and Idaho, they all have a 4-game win streak right now, and we'll have to see how that plays out for all 4 of those teams. But looking at the Vandals' upcoming schedule, they will travel to Greeley, North Colorado to face Northern Colorado today, actually. And then next Saturday, they will travel to Seattle to face Seattle University in the final match of the regular season. That will take place at 11 a.m. for any Vandal fans listening in the Seattle area. And then it will be the Big Sky Tournament, April 29th through May 1st in Sacramento, California. Speaking of the Big Sky Tournament, the men's team has also punched their ticket to the postseason. They had an incredible match against Weber State Friday, and they did what no other team in the Big Sky Conference has been able to do. They defeated the Wildcats, handing them their first conference loss of the season with a 5-2 victory for Idaho. That improves the team's record to 14-5 overall, 8-2 in conference play, and it drops Weber State to 10-7 overall and 8-1 in Big Sky Conference play. However, Weber State still is the conference leader at this point in time. But Luis, it's has to be a huge momentum boost and a little bit of confidence too to have the Vandals come away with a victory over an undefeated conference opponent.
It's huge. Consider when you think about how the season has been for men's tennis. They have faced comers and goers, the toppest teams, and also kind of like the teams that are quote unquote beatable. They faced every kind of challenge. The fact they came in facing like the team of the Big Sky Conference who are undefeated and managed to defeat them despite location changes, no less, because they were supposed to be here, but the weather was not cooperative at all on Friday. Then they moved to Lewis, and even the transition of locations really didn't even bother them at all. And I think it kind of, they came in, they know what they had to focus on. They had to beat Weber State to kind of keep themselves in the postseason hunt, even though it's kind of difficult at this point of the season because we can't really control Weber State's destiny after the match. It's kind of up to them and the other opponents to kind of dictate the outcome. But for Idaho to win against Weber State, that is a huge momentum booster. As if they haven't had it, as if they needed more, they did on Friday, and that's just going to continue to help them. And I think this team has all the potential to make it back to the conference championship. Gonna have to wait and find out, but it'll be interesting if those two teams meet each other again in the postseason, which, in likewise terms, it could happen. So it's going to be interesting moving forward how Weber State bounces back and how Idaho continues to increase their momentum, because they have done a phenomenal job with what some people were a little bit concerned how they were going to do with the new coach. And I think Abida Bar has kept the team's momentum that they had from last year and just keep on hitting those goals and learning and improving. And I think that's what I am taking away from this huge win against the Wildcats.
Yeah, because it seemed during the fall that the program was a little shaky. I mean, they were still finding a little bit of success on the court. I think they came in second or third in a couple of the fall tournaments, but to rebound well and right now be second in the conference standings under a first-year head coach, that's huge for the program. It speaks volumes to not only the talent of the athletes, but also their ability to find chemistry with one another and with their new coach.
No, and I think it helps that you have a coach that is relatively in the same age like the other players are. He was an assistant coach for a couple of years right here, and he also played for this university. He understands the program. He kind of gets how certain playing styles work, and I think that's how they're connected really well right now, considering they're not that far apart as far as age concerned. When you look at the juniors and seniors, and how long ago Akbar played, it's been not that long ago when you think about it.
Yes, and looking at some of these results, Weber State's points came on the singles court, but they did have one doubles victory in doubles competition on the number one court. Stefan Cooper and Sanjay Goswami defeated Artem Vashenikov and Jackson Varney 7-6, 7-5, but the Vandals responded by taking the other two doubles matches. Senior Odin Barta and sophomore Felipe Fonseca defeated Todd Fott and Jacob Guert 7-5, a pretty close match. But then also Mark Kovacs and Lucas Coutinho defeated Hoen Chen and Landon Barlow 6-4 to claim the singles points. And then looking at singles competition, Felipe Fonseca defeated Jacob Guert 6-2, 6-3 on the number 1 court. Pretty convincing win. Odin Barda had to use 3 sets to defeat Todd Fott, but still claimed the point for the Vandals, 5-7, 6-3, 6-4. Stefan Cooper of Weber State claimed one of the 2 points for the Wildcats by defeating Jackson Varney. And then Sanjay Goswami defeated Lucas Coutinho 6-4, 6-3 to claim the other point for the Wildcats. But as a whole, a 5-2 victory is pretty resounding for any team in tennis. And, you know, obviously it was a little bit closer than the scores initially indicate as far as that doubles point. You know, I feel like it could have swung either way.
It could have swung either way, but I think that's what happens when you have two of the top teams in Big Sky Conference play one another, and the fact that Idaho were to beat them 5-2 in the final score, let alone give the Wildcats their first conference loss of the season this late in the season when it kind of really comes down to the crunch time. And it kind of shows how both teams are, the fact that it was relatively close, but Idaho pulling away in a relatively convincing way to just only losing 2 points in either sport, and it's just a huge deal that you're able to beat the top team. It kind of shows you where you are right now, especially it helps when your team is really good, that you beat a really good team, and I think it comes to show you how they have hit their stride, and I think playing those difficult teams that are not from the conference has kind of helped them, and they're benefiting from it.
Now looking at the Big Sky men's tennis standings, Weber State still in first with a 9-1 conference record, 11-7 overall. Vandals currently sit second with an 8-2 record. They trail Weber State by 1 game, so Weber State would need to lose and the Vandals would need to win to be able to essentially leapfrog the Wildcats. Idaho with a 14-5 overall record. Montana sits third with a 7-2 conference record, 8-6 overall. Sacramento State is fourth with an 8-3 record. Northern Arizona and Montana State have also punched postseason tickets with a 7-3 and 5-3 record, respectively. And I believe that's all 6 teams that are in the postseason tournament as of right now. So still a lot of positioning and seeding on the line, especially with, I guess, the top 5 teams. 9-1 record, 8-2 record, 7-2, 8-3, 7-3. So there's a lot of wiggle room for some teams to really make a push right here at the end of the season.
Yeah, if they're all bunched up together, that whoever's lost is going to benefit the other team. It's just going to be interesting going forward what will happen, and hopefully, if the weather hangs on, then relocations will not be much of an issue for the Vandals. That's if they have another home match coming up.
They do not.
Okay, then never mind.
So the men's tennis team next weekend travels to Boise State to face the Broncos. Huge rivalry matchup. Obviously, a lot on that line. Not necessarily for conference considerations, but definitely for bragging rights and a little bit of a confidence boost heading into the postseason. The following day, Sunday, April 24th, they will face Idaho State, also in Boise, at 11 a.m. before heading back up. That will be a conference matchup, so that will be the final conference game for the Vandals before the postseason tournament. So
I would imagine they will get several people, considering this is like the only times we'll get to see Idaho versus Boise State in any sport. I know men's lacrosse, there is one coming up, if I'm correct, right?
Yes, and we will get to that after our 11:30 promo. But looking at the Big Sky tournament for both men's and women's, it seems like both teams are going to enter as the number 2 seed. What do you like from these programs, both men's and women's, and what do you think could hinder them in their pursuit of another Big Sky Conference championship?
What I like about men's is kind of like there's no quit in them. Even if they get frustrated, they have like guys that can keep them relaxed and understand. They gotta understand they have to adapt to different styles of play. That one thing that I like about this, there's just no quit in them. At the same time, that could be a detriment. Is that if they get they get a little bit too frustrated when they haven't played, especially in singles, when they have a guy that plays completely different and they're not used to that kind of style of play. It could possibly hinder the kind of the morale of an individual. That's the only thing that could possibly hinder them right now. But for the women's, it's their team chemistry. The women's their team chemistry and their emphasis on doing well on certain aspects of the game. The only type of hinderment that I have for the women's is whether or not they can be a little bit too, or whether confidence level could be a little bit neutral or a little bit overly. It depends how they do. I think if they keep the confidence level good to a team where they're not too overconfident, that it could possibly hinder them, because it has happened in several teams, and it could bite you back in the long run. That's the only thing that I will be a tad bit skeptical on, whether or not and they're coming in too confident or they're coming in just fine in confidence level where they can be competitive and don't carry themselves a little bit.
Now, something I'm interested in seeing is whether or not essentially home field advantage for Sacramento State will prove to be a factor on either side. Sacramento State is currently 4th in the men's tennis standings, and then on the women's tennis standings, they're 2nd. So, obviously, playing in Sacramento is huge for the program to not have to deal with travel and jet lag and fatigue and be able to sleep in your own beds and get up and I guess not have to worry about deviating much from your schedule. I feel like that's going to play a huge factor and may help give Sacramento State a victory or two that they otherwise shouldn't have had.
It's gonna be it should be interesting how the Hornets will continue to hit their stride and whether or not the home field advantage will help them. We're just gonna have to see and find out. Some of them, I understand, the jet lag could be a factor. Some of them may not have to worry about it, but obviously going to a different location at this point of the season when you're thinking about we're on the week before dead week and 2 weeks before finals. They got a lot of stuff on their plate, but I would imagine, like any athlete that I've interviewed in the past, they're used to it. They would have to be used to it and understand what they sign up for, and they gotta have to kind of find ways to kind of focus on the game first, and then academics shortly thereafter.
Exactly. So that's what we'll be looking at as far as the Big Sky tournament is concerned for both men's and women's tennis. Idaho punch a ticket for both the men's and women's sides, hoping to see repeats for both programs at the conclusion of the tournament. But yeah, I like the direction both programs are going, in that they've been able to not just find success on the court, but be able to maintain that. Especially on the women's side, we did talk about how they have a group of young players who I think will anchor the program for a while to come. And may not necessarily be the case on the men's side, but I think the men's were able to do well because of the leadership that they have with a couple of their seniors. Isn't it Jackson Varney and Odin Barta appear to really be leading the team down the stretch.
Yeah, and that's what I admire about this men's tennis team when I cover or what I've seen, and they have that leadership of the older guys that's been there for a long time, and they kind of help groom or help grow the team and the program to exponential heights like more than ever. They have in the past. Don't get me wrong, they have in the past, but it just continued to carry the torch of the kind of leadership that is always essential to have as a team when you have different types of players from different countries and different personalities. It always helps to have that kind of leadership, no matter how well you are, no matter how much you have improved over the years.
True. It's 11:30 right now, so we will have our brief promo, but don't tune that dial anywhere else. We will still be here for 4th and Downtown on KUOI 89.3 FM. Moscow, don't go away.
Oh, no, you're cooking? No one's over me. Children now, fire! Call the fire department!
Not from in there.
Walter!
If there's a real fire in your house, your first job is to escape immediately. Fire spreads quickly. Call the fire department from outside the house.
From a neighbor's phone!
You got it. You're both safe.
Your advice really hit home. Now I know.
And knowing is half the battle.
G.I. Joe.
Welcome back to Fourth and Downtown. I'm your host, Josh Grissom, Argonaut Sports Editor. I'm joined with Luis the Godfather Torres, the Vandal Nation web manager. And we were just talking some men's and women's tennis and some track and field. But right now we're going to kind of turn our attention to men's club lacrosse. Idaho hosted Montana yesterday afternoon on the sprint turf right outside the Kibbie Dome. And unfortunately, the Vandals could not contain the Grizzlies' offense. Keep going along there. I believe it's a 5-game skid now. Fell to the Grizzlies 15-8. But Montana had to rely on 5 goals in the fourth quarter to essentially seal the win over the Vandals. After the Vandals cut the deficit to 2 late in the third quarter, it seemed like Montana's success initially had to do a lot with the first half. They jumped out to a 9-2 lead over Idaho at halftime, and then scored another goal, so it was 10-2, but the Vandals responded with 6 in the third to kind of keep it close, but ultimately Montana pulled away. I feel like when you get behind by that much early on, no matter what kind of a comeback you make, you're still going to struggle being able to close out the game and finish it.
No, in any form of sport, if you fall this far behind early in the going, it could kill you a little bit of your confidence, and also the team morale will be down. You got to have somebody to really step up, which is not easy to do in any sport, to have somebody to really step up and try to find a way to reduce the score, especially when you have a competitive team and you have at that point a 4-game skid, now 5. It's just kind of like you think to yourself is that when are they going to turn their luck around? When are they going to find that spark that will carry them and also finish it off? And I think in that first half, that deficit that they had was a bit too much. But you got to but the way they recovered and down the stretch was helpful. It helped them, but I think down in the fourth quarter when they just kind of essentially pulled away, that it kind of shows that you have to play all 4 quarters again. All 4 quarters, which is not easy, especially when you fall that far behind.
In talking to senior captain AJ Gravel, he was talking about how the Vandals had defeated Montana in the fall and then I believe last year as well. And so he said it seemed like they came out with a lot more energy and felt like they were due for a win in their book, and that translated onto the field and to the strong first half that they had, and then also pulling away in the end. He said, quote, "Historically, this has been a pretty heated rivalry. They've been due for a win in their book, and they just came out firing on all cylinders, and they caught us on a flat day," end quote. Montana improves to 4-8 in the conference. Idaho 2-9 overall. However, Idaho did see some strong play from not only from Gravel but from freshman attackman Grant Hill. Seems like Hill's kind of put together some strong performances as of late. This being another one. Hill, I believe, had 3 goals and 2 assists. Gravel had 3 goals as well. And Idaho sophomore midfielder Drew Welch netted the other 2 goals for the Vandals on 6 shots. But, 8 goals. I feel like to find success in lacrosse, you need to hit double digits. And the Vandals just couldn't put together anything in the fourth quarter to, I guess, chip away at that lead a little more, or maybe gain some momentum. It just seemed like, and maybe it has to do with the low number of players on the Vandals roster. I believe they only have 2 or 3 substitutes at any time, and Montana State had 25 men on their roster, which is essentially a second team right there. That a lot of fresh legs, especially late in the game.
Yeah, I think that would have a lot to do that you don't have that many players, and it's just been the theme all season long with club sports and probably in general. They're just trying to find players. And I go back when I covered the game against Gonzaga where they couldn't afford anybody to get hurt when, Calvin Burton kind of got struck in the head. He didn't finish the rest of the game, so then you had to have a couple the only reserves left to kind of play in, and they're really you don't have that many subs. You're going to get tired regardless. Yeah, even if you have a week's rest, you're just going to be tired. You're going to have to be expected to really step up and perform. perform than what your body may allow you to do. Especially when you don't have any subs, it's just always difficult and it can be frustrating. It's just one of those things that throughout the season you gotta have to build your cardio, build your mentality, and also your physicality to kind of expect those kind of plays, or expect those kind of preparations where you're not gonna have that many subs in general.
Yeah, and from a college athlete's perspective, I can tell you that fatigue plays a lot, but also when you get momentum like the Vandals did in the third quarter, that can help boost a team that is feeling tired and feeling down. It provides them with a lot more energy, and I feel like essentially the turning point of the game was probably the first goal or two in the fourth quarter by Montana, because after you see that, you feel defeated. You're like, we have to put together another strong performance. Instead of being down 2, now we're going to be down 3. Oh no, now we're down 4. And then it just looks a little bit more insurmountable than it does compared to when it's 2 goals.
Especially when you have that strong third quarter and then the fourth quarter just keeps scoring, and then the margin just continues to increase. Or it can be difficult to bear. To be quite honest, it can be difficult to bear, especially when you're still going through a transitional season with a new coach and different players and kind of recruitment also being a factor. It's just kind of hard to imagine, especially even if you have a good home crowd in front of you. It's just sometimes not easy to kind of explain, especially because especially when it comes to a player perspective, I have no idea.
Yeah. Now looking at some of the stats, Palmer finished the game's leading scorer with 4 goals and 2 assists for Montana. Larson provided another 4 goals and 4 ground balls, while graduate midfielder Robert Tomlinson added 2 goals and 3 assists for the Grizzlies. Looking at the Vandals, they finished the season next Saturday at Guy Wicks Field. They host Boise State, another huge rivalry game for the team, especially in a physical sport like lacrosse. It's going to be tough competition. They're going to be beating each other senseless on the field.
This one has got to be a good crowd. I think people from Boise State were more willing to try, especially in the beastly sport as lacrosse. But so when you don't have football or basketball, I think lacrosse comes up right there as far as you want to see aggression from a rivalry. I think that one could be a can't miss athletic event. Boise State versus Idaho men's lacrosse, especially for those who have seen men's lacrosse and how physical they can be and how aggressive, even the crowd being a little bit extremely colorful and interactive. I think it's one of the, if you've not seen a lacrosse matchup, I think this will be the perfect one to go, especially if you really want to see Idaho versus Boise State in this day and age. This is the perfect opportunity to watch.
And they draw a pretty nice-sized crowd. When I went up to the game yesterday, I want to say there was at least 100 people on the sidelines watching the game. Obviously, that it does include some Montana fans, but the Idaho backing was pretty strong. I feel like, especially for a club sport, probably, I guess, next to hockey, one of the most popular ones that I've covered so far.
Yeah, and it brings out a lot of people because they know it is a physical sport, and it brings out a lot of guys from the fraternities, or even past players, or even people that love just the physicality, the physical sports, or they just want to have a good time. And lacrosse is one of those that you can definitely enjoy when you're unable to go to a hockey game, or you just want to go outside and have something to do or watch on a Saturday night where you don't really have other sports going on with football and basketball. Don't have like major games at any time during their season, with the exception of January to April. For the most part, this is the time of the year where it's like, if you want to see some Vandal athletics, this is like the ones where you could probably watch and just kind of have a good time. Considering it's going to be a Guy Wicks Field, I think it will draw more people, and I think it's going to be more interesting. Considering another thing, they're going to be playing in grass, natural grass rather than artificial turf. So that could, I don't think it'll factor in, but I think it's going to be more. It's going to be fun to watch, and who knows? I kind of hope Mother Nature kind of has a different attitude in terms of like the weather comes in and it's like rainy and cloudy and it adds a little bit of mud. I think it will be a little bit more intense when you have not so good weather. But if it's sunny, then it's totally fine. It's not going to change the game. I think there's a little bit of element that adds. It's telling me that it should be rainy and cloudy so we can see some mud action of this kind of rivalry like Boise State and Idaho. I'm just asking for it.
Yeah, for those of you who missed it, that'll be Saturday at noon at Guy Wilkes Field in Moscow. Idaho Men's Club Lacrosse hosts Boise State in the team's season finale. Let's also talk about the newest verbal commit to the Vandal Cross Country program. News broke of this over the weekend. Lake Ridge High School standout Noah Belchik verbally committed to the University of Idaho Friday morning. He said, quote, "Being able to spend time with the team helped me to see what my life would be like as a Vandal. I liked what I saw. I've heard nothing but great things about the coaching staff and athletes, which also helped my decision." End quote. Apparently he was recruited by schools like Oregon, Baylor, San Francisco, Texas, and Michigan, but said he based his decision to attend Idaho on the relationship Tim Colley has with his athletes. And it seems like Colley, as a head coach, does an excellent job in kind of snatching away recruits that are being considered by big-time, I guess not necessarily big-time, but very well-recognized programs like Michigan or Baylor or Oregon. I mean, because everybody wants to go to Oregon. They always have the snazzy uniforms and the latest equipment from Nike. But for Colley to be able to get some of these athletes like Stuffle and now Belchik is huge, and I think it speaks volumes to Colley's effectiveness and kind of leadership as a coach.
No, it's been very admirable of what Colley has done over the years. And I did want to bring up like Zion Stuffle because this is not the first time that Colley was able to kind of recruit somebody that was all that a Pac-12 school was also trying to get. With Stuffle, it was like I believe was it like Arizona and Washington to name a few, and now the fact he got another one speaks volumes of how much of an effective recruiter he is, an effective coach, and kind of like what they look for a team. And it's been one of the things that I definitely admire when it comes to covering track and field, especially the home meets this season. That they have that strong leadership. They're there for one another. They have the coaching staff that will more than willing to help you out, get better and better, and kind of make some adjustments as the event progresses to kind of find that little edge that you can be slightly better. And that's why, and I can imagine that's why they're, like this week alone with all those 4 events, including in Southern California, they continue to get personal best and even season best and conference best timings or jumps or whatever track and field event we're talking about.
Now, Belchik competes in numerous events ranging from the 800-meter dash to the 5K cross-country. His personal best right now is a mark of 1 minute 55.9 seconds in the 800-meter event and 4 minutes 4 seconds and 30 hundredths of a second in the 1500-meter race as a junior. Tim Colley said, quote, "We are excited to have Noah be a part of the program." And he also said, my apologies, that's the extent of his quotes. But the Lake Ridge recruit said he's very excited to be competing with the program next season. He said he's looking at the current roster and the guys who have committed to the program. He's excited to see how competitive they could be, and that he's looking forward to the next season at Idaho. I think the program has been able to net a number of standout recruits, I think, based on the relationship that Colley has with his coaching staff and with the program. I mean, you look at Idaho, and it's not necessarily the most appealing place to run, especially when the weather doesn't cooperate in the spring and it's all over the place. You get rain, you get hail, you get wind, sometimes snow, and for them to be sunny. Yeah, sometimes sun, but that's on occasion. But to be able to get these athletes to commit to a school like this when the weather and I guess the appeal isn't as big as some of these other huge programs, I think obviously says a lot about Colley, and probably one of the reasons why he was considered to head coach the women's national team during the indoor.
Yeah, I think all of those certainly factor in that he's willing to kind of get people to think like more like it's just more than just what it looks like, or more what the weather is. It could be desire. It's more about the team, the school, and the people around you that can make you better as seasons goes on.
Yep. Well, we will be right back. We have another quick promotional thing, so don't go anywhere. This is 4th and Downtown on KUOI 89.3 FM Moscow.
Since the dawn of KUOI, students have strived to make radio listeners. We've seen the passing of vinyl to 8-track, cassette to CDs, to MP3s and back to vinyl. Despite the changes in the KUOI 89.3 FM has and always will be free format radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We need students making need radio, need listeners just like you. So be a part of this story. Tune in to KUOI FM Moscow 89.
Welcome back to 4th and Downtown. I'm Josh Grissom, and I'm joined with Luis, the Godfather Torres. We were just talking some Vandal sports, but let's shift our attention to the bigger picture. Luis, over the weekend, the Seattle Seahawks schedule was released by the team, and quite a number of really intriguing matchups for Seattle, especially late in the season, kind of a flip-flop of their usual schedule, which I'd have to say was the tough games were at the start of the season, and then it kind of trailed off, and you had some easier matchups towards the end of the year. This time it seems like it's flipped. A lot of the easier matchups are at the start of the year, and then some of the tougher matchups are at the end of the season. Do you feel like the reason they set that up was because of what's happened the past couple of years, where the Seahawks have come out kind of slow, 2-2, or 3-3, and then they've cut their stride? Or do you feel like it's just, whatever happens?
I think it's whatever happens. And when you look at the schedule, they have two teams that a lot of fans, a lot of people, and a lot of players want to seek revenge. It could take kind of like seek for vengeance of, and that's Carolina and New England. The fact that we get those two teams showcases that it's not going to be an easy season for Seattle. It's going to be very challenging, but also kind of games that are going to be must-watch, and hope we can beat both of those teams. That is kind of like, at this point, like the two teams we vilify the most that are not from the NFC West is concerned.
Yeah, and looking at some of the key games for the Seahawks this year, they open up their season September 11th against Miami. They will be hosting the Dolphins. Kind of a unique, I guess, interleague matchup. You have the Dolphins who are in the AFC and the Seahawks who are in the NFC. You don't usually see too many games where they come across the leagues and face each other. But especially with these two teams, I don't think they've played each other all that much at all, especially being on opposite sides of the country.
No, I think the day what you have to go back to the days when the Seahawks were in the AFC for that to even have to be possible. When the Dolphins faced Seattle, I don't recall when was the last time they faced each other. It must have been a couple years. I know they played Jacksonville, but they're in the NFC. But that was during the Del Rio days when the Seahawks shut them out like about 7 or 8 years ago. So it's been a long time they faced a Florida team that early in the season.
And then the following week, the Seahawks will face the Rams in L.A. or Luis. Where are they playing that game?
At the L.A. Memorial Coliseum is what I'm hearing that they're going to play.
Okay, and that'll be the first home game for the Los Angeles Rams that season, correct?
Yes, it will be. And that one, I am very curious, and that one will be the ultimate test whether or not it's going to be a successful season when it comes to crowd, because what I've always noticed about LA football, even before 95 happened with the LA Raiders and Rams and all that, they have a hard time selling out the place. And then I don't know. It seems the LA Memorial Coliseum is a prestigious venue, but it's going to have a hard time selling out until they get the new stadium up and running. And if they don't sell out this game, it's going to be a quote unquote doomed season.
I don't think they'll have difficulty selling out the season opener. I think the season opener for any team is always a huge event. I mean, you look at the Mariners for baseball, nonetheless. Terrible attendance throughout the year, but the opening weekend, it's usually almost sold out as a whole. So I feel like when you're considering a sport like football, which I feel like a lot more people have interest and energy invested into it, that I think the opening matchup won't be a problem for the Los Angeles Rams. I think later in the season, if they let me look up their schedule real quick while I'm talking about this. But I think later in the season will be the true testament on whether or not they can continue to get their fan base to come.
And they're gonna need to win and stay consistent because, like, so we have the thing is it's gonna be an interesting matchup because we didn't beat them last year. We need to beat them to get our season going. Rather than have the slow start, have a strong start of the season. And I think beating the Rams in LA and their opener will really help. But I'm just curious how they're going to do it. Whether they have tarps or they're going to have it all open, the stadium, because they will probably have some tarps in there on the upper level. I will not be too surprised, but we're going to have to wait and find out and see how ticket sales goes.
Yeah, looking at some of their games, I think later in the season when New York comes, the New York Giants or the Dolphins come, those necessarily aren't fan favorite opponents for NFL fans. So we'll see if their interest is still high at that point in time. But I think also it's a long term thing. So 3 or 4 years down the road, I think depending on the team's success in the NFL, will they continue to have fans at the game and sell out the stadium?
Yeah, that's good. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard, and when you and like I said, the stadium itself, I think how they do this first season attendance wise is gonna help like long term with the stadium. It's obviously it's not gonna be I think the new stadium they're trying to build is not gonna be as big as far as number of people can go, but so that would not be much of an issue. But they really want to have a good start and a good season to kind of showcase like, hey, the wait was worth it. We got the Rams. Now can we continue to build and build? It's not going to be an easy season because when you relocate it, usually the results aren't quite there right away.
Yeah, and going back to the Seahawks, some of the other big games for the team. November 13th, they travel to Foxborough to face the New England Patriots in a Super Bowl rematch. Obviously, there's a lot of bitter memories for Seahawks fans the last time the two teams met, and probably something the fan base will have a lot of difficulty getting over these next few.
They will never. The social media will not let it go. Like I remember, I was on Facebook like 1 hour after the announcement, they show the last play off.
It was a tough game for any Seahawks fans. So that's a big matchup for the team. Also, December 4th, they host the Carolina Panthers. Obviously, that's kind of developed into a little rivalry of its own. Cam Newton and the NFC champions will travel to Seattle. That game will be 5:30, so Sunday Night Football. Same with the Patriots game. That will also be Sunday Night Football. Another Sunday Night Football game that Seattle will take part in is Thursday, December 15th. Or I guess not Sunday Night Football if it's on Thursday.
Yeah,
but a Thursday night matchup on NBC, same channel that does Sunday Night Football. They will host the Rams. I think that could be a turning point in the season. Like you said, the Seahawks kind of struggled against the Rams last year. If they were able to take down the team at home during that point in the year when there's 3 games left, I think that could play huge as far as making the playoffs.
And also whether or not will be the Arizona Cardinals for the NFC West, because I think the NFC is just growing to be as competitive, where you can have any team have one bad year and then all of a sudden they have a really good year. Because the AFC, when you look at the AFC right now, it could be a tad bit predictable. The NFC, it's going to be interesting, especially when it comes to the wild card spot.
Yeah, and any fan in the region who's hoping to grab a ticket, first off, good luck. Your wallet's got to be pretty hefty to be able to afford some of these tickets. Like looking at the season opener, September 11th, $262 is the starting ticket price on StubHub, and that is for the matchup when the Vandals also travel to Seattle to face the Huskies. So definitely made me do a double take, and it's having me rethink a road trip to Seattle to cover the team there. Looking at some of these games, the Panthers games, tickets start at $310. Arizona Cardinals, when they come, $272. I mean, this is not an expensive sport if you're a fan to attend. So especially if you're a Seahawks fan. However, if you are interested in getting the absolute lowest prices available,
Is it the Falcons?
No. On July 25th, 3,400 tickets will go on sale, priced at $66 a piece. However, they will only be sold at the CenturyLink Field box office, and you will likely have to wait overnight, but I feel like it's worth it if you're getting $66 tickets. That's $200 less than what they're going for. So, anybody who's a, a diehard fan will probably be camping out that night to get some very good affordable seats for those matchups. But yeah, as a whole, it's not easy to afford going to a Seahawks game. It'll cost you an arm, a leg, your firstborn son, and a whole other
Question: How much is if the starting price, if it hasn't been released already, the December 24th game?
Arizona, $272.
Okay, $272.
Yeah, that's.
I think if I wanted to go, that's doable.
It's a lot of money though. I mean, you have to.
It's $272. It's $200. It's almost $300. It's relatively doable if I say.
You could afford one entire college textbook for that price.
Oh, don't even get me started with college textbooks. If I'm done in December, I only have to worry about it one more time.
Yeah, but definitely not cheap at all. It's where college football is a lot better as far as prices go, especially for the Vandals. I think some of the season tickets are starting at $8, so definitely check those out. But yeah, just initially, those are our thoughts concerning the Seahawks schedule and the pricing for the games. It's not fun for anybody looking to make a purchase for that. So, but yeah, Luis, we have a couple minutes left in our program. Any last thoughts today?
Well, I think the last thought is whether or not, because when I look back, I kind of talked about the NBA briefly on Friday when I was talking about Kobe's 60 points and the Warriors' 73-9 record. Do you possibly think the Warriors can go undefeated? Because here's the thing: obviously, it's a different time and a different era. When you look at the 95-96 Bulls, they only lost in the postseason 3 times: 2 against the Supersonics and 1 against the Knicks. Do you think it's possible that the Warriors can lose less than 3 games in the postseason?
Less than 3?
Yeah, because that's how many the Bulls lost: 2 from the Supersonics in the NBA Finals and 1 against the New York Knicks.
No. Here's why. I think the Spurs will beat them. Will take 2 games from them, and I feel like whoever they face in the NBA Finals, likely the Cavaliers, will take at least 1 game from them. That's 3, and I'm assuming at some other point in time, someone is going to take a 4th game from them. So I can see 4 losses for the Warriors. I don't think that'll be something that they'll be able to accomplish.
I pretty much don't think it'll happen. I think they'll have at least 4 or more losses, but I don't think they're going to lose. They're going to lose no. I don't think they're going to go undefeated or lose once. I think that's going to be too difficult, especially when you have the Spurs. That's it. At that point, that's when the Spurs have to show up. When you talk about Warriors versus Spurs, they've kind of been very disappointed games when you look at the big picture, except for the fact that the Spurs actually did beat them once. And I think if the Spurs are going to be legit when it comes to the Warriors, they got to come in to the finals. I think something, I don't know, it's kind of the Popovich way of doing things, that they purposely do okay or not so well just to kind of boom in the postseason they're hungry. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
I consider it as a Popovich way to do things as
Yeah.
far as how they've done in the regular season with the Warriors.
Well, that about does it for our program right now. It's time for our self-promotion. Follow us on Twitter at Vandal Nation for the latest scores, news, updates, anything related to Vandal Athletics. We've got it. You can also follow us on Instagram, The Vandal Nation. See some of our photographs and the assignments our photographers have been on. We also are on Facebook, Vandal Nation. You get posts of all of our content that we've had online. You can always check us out on our website, www.thevandalnation.com. Or as always, just pick up a copy of the Argonaut around campus and check out stories that we are covering throughout the week. So I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in. We will be back Friday, 3:30 to 4, and then next Sunday as well from 11 to 12. So be sure to tune in, get the latest news on Vandal Sports as a whole. So I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you on Friday.